Well, hello guys, welcome back. Now I know why I got the book. Loki baited a trap and I walked right in it. And Loki knew my curiosity and my wondering if I really remembered this book being as strange as it was would get me to wander into the trap. Um, no offense to the Christians that watch the channel, but this writer's kind of a jerk. And it comes through. And it comes through in that kind of jerky Christian way. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on you. I've seen jerky heathens and everything else, but this is definitely jerky Christian flavor. You know the guy that's kind of a jerk, but it's okay because he's doing it in God's name? That guy. Kind of want to punch him in the face, but you don't. He's kind of that kind of writer. He's kind of a jerk. And they kind of make fun of the idea of God looking like Gandalf, which Loki found amusing to no end because we all know Gandalf's based on Odin. And the gods found it very amusing that this god is so delusional he thinks he's the only god in the universe. They thought that was hilarious. Loki especially thought it was hilarious because Loki's there the whole time watching me read, going, uh-huh, uh-huh. And Odin's there very usefully pointing out, well, you see, this is entrapment. This is how they get you, and da 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 da. And all the gods had something to say. And they were all offended, each in their own way, of why would a god, for example, have fertility? Freyr was very highly offended and not just give it to people. Why would he hold back his blessings and be mad and not give to people? We give our gods gifts because we love them and they've already given us so much. We don't give them gifts because they're spiteful little creatures that won't give us anything if we don't cater to them. They can be naughty, they can get on your last damn nerve, but by and large, our gods love us and give without ceasing. If you would see my garden this year, all the wildlings that have came up, and all the wild trees that have come up and are sheltering the house and everything, the gods are good to us. They bless us with abundance, especially Freyr. Freyr runs around blessing everybody with abundance. And if he were told he had to withhold it because you're a bad person, he would just look at that god and shrug and go back to blessing everybody with abundance. And Loki, too, will bless us with abundance and bless us with good things. And what actually hurt Loki's feelings, and he got very quiet, had to spend a little time on his own, was the idea that there's some god out there that has the ability to give us all perfect healing powers and all godlike powers, but he won't give it to us because we're bad. But just so we know, he has that power, but he's not giving to us because he's a snit. And Loki's looking at me. I said, we all know this is the boogeyman god that somebody made up. This god doesn't exist. I said they get so far away from the teachings and then they just snap back into them. And Loki's a liberator, and he could save us from a lot, but he looked profoundly hurt at the idea that any god would have an ability to do that, to just give you total healing powers. As the horrible implication, guys, is that all 7 billion of us could all be perfect healers. Only God is mad at us and won't give us that ability because we're bad people, because a long time ago the first 2 humans dropped the ball. He thinks that's horrible. He thinks that's mean. And he says, why would any God teach you that? And I said, well, it wasn't God that taught us that. It was the stories they made up. He goes, yeah, but that's mean. I said, I know. So most of the book was about me comforting our gods and assuring them I know this is Boogeyman God, and that Boogeyman God doesn't exist. I know that because Loki saved me from Boogeyman God, and Loki is the one that's been reassuring me gods don't do that. Now, our gods can tease us. Our gods can tease us and go, you want this, and want this, and then eventually they tell us they were teasing us about it. And they can sometimes ask us if we want something, and they can sometimes make fine promises. But they're not doing it to be cruel or to dangle things in front of us. They're trying to make conversation, and they're very well aware of how omnipresent his teachings are. So they kind of want you to be engaged with them. And they kind of want to keep holding things out for you to see sometimes, because unlike their perfect all-knowing God, our gods are a lot like us. They have interesting character traits. They have bad tempers, or they have short-sightedness, or they try to help and it goes disastrously wrong. Loki is a little infamous for that, though usually in the end, maybe years looking back, you see what he was doing all along. But at the time you're going through it, it feels like he really messed up and you're really mad at him. And the thing is, Loki would never tell us we're bad. He would tell us if we were doing something wrong. There's a difference. There's a difference between telling people they're essentially bad and telling people they're doing the wrong thing. There's a huge difference. It's day and night. And Loki basically just wants to love us and play with us and teach us and help us to grow and introduce us to all the other Norse gods, especially the one with the spear who doesn't want any other gods around us, and says that if these gods exist and they can give you all these interesting gifts, then they should show up and start giving gifts. Because he's Oski, he's the gift giver. If Odin could give us all these powers, for example, to heal everybody on sight, he would. Why would he hold them back? He wouldn't be cruel. So that's the difference. Their god has a magical bag of presents he's never going to give you because he doesn't want to. That's perfect excuse, right? And our gods have gifts that they give, but they can't always be giving us everything we want for whatever reason, usually because it's not good for us, and we would probably make mischief if we all had godlike powers, and they know that about us. So it was more about comforting the gods and assuring them I wasn't attracted to big scary god. And Princess is the most heathen cat on the planet. She started going batso today when I was going in to read. She was fine while I was watching YouTube and answering you guys. She was fine while I was having my coffee and my little Danishy thing. But the moment I went in there to start reading this book, she went crazy. And I having a conversation with this cat because I'm at the point where I talk to this cat. And I told her the book said that, only Jesus was good. And the cat's like, because she shakes her head back and forth. She disagrees with everything because she's ornery. And I said, you're your father's daughter, all right? And the funny thing was the cat kept going crazy until I gave up on the book totally. And then the cat calmed down and powered down. And she's quiet now. But I think she's a little heathen cat. And she's definitely her father's daughter. Loki will give us freedom, but if he thinks we're reading something that's actually painful to us to read, or is hurting us, or damaging our relationship with him or any other god, then he'll step in and intervene. And this book just makes me feel, once you hit that 101 page, makes me feel lousy because it basically says humans are all bad because one or two humans made a bad decision eons ago, and only Jesus was a good human. All other humans were bad, and that's vastly unfair because Jesus is actually God who chose to become human. So the only good human ever was actually God. He was fully human because they don't want you to pick that theology apart too hard. And I'm like, and he's still fully human, yet he's divinity. It makes my head hurt too. Either he's a demigod or he's a god or something. Pick a damn lane. And I'm hearing laughter back here. They have this unfair expectation because if he was the only good human, then why should the rest of us even bother trying? Which is why a lot of Christians end up going into despair and never trying because the bar's already been set impossibly high by divinity who came down and was human, and yet wasn't human, was a god, yet he was totally human, and it just all kind of falls apart, and even Thor put it back together. I heard he won't want to. And that's a difference, guys, and they're welcome to have that belief. If people want to believe they're basically sinful, and people want to believe they're bad, and people want to believe that Jesus had to die to save them, that's fine. We all have sacrifice saviors in every religion. We all have a god that chose to sacrifice. Odin chose to make a lot of sacrifices. Loki's chosen to make a lot of sacrifices. Our gods tend to look a little different than, say, more classically beautiful gods, like, say, the Greek pantheon, because our gods are the gods of sacrifices. They're the gods of, my people aren't going to make it through unless I go get this thing for them, so I will go get it. And Odin kept ominously rumbling that no god sends his son to do a god's job. And that's the difference. I'm not trying to pick on Christians. I'm not trying to pick on their theology, but even though Jesus chose to do what he did, no God that loves his son would have let his son go anywhere near this, would have done everything he could to prevent it. You know the story of Balder and, Frigga riding out, and Odin being concerned, and everything else. Now, we can say, as many of us say now, that this is probably a harvest drama, but still, it shows you the love good gods have for their children. That they would not let them get in harm's way if they could prevent it. They would do everything they could to stop it because they love their children and they aren't going to hide behind their children. Now, there are different interpretations, of course, of Balder's drama. Some say that Balder was sacrificed so that Odin didn't have to be sacrificed and everything else. But since I've worked with Balder and he seems just fine, only thing I can get out of it is that, at least in our cosmology, the sacrifice is for the greater good of everyone. And it's not based on idea of sin or people being bad. It's based on an idea of humans needed something and the gods were willing to make a sacrifice for us. And they were all just chiming in at different points. It bothered Freyr that any god could have fertility and not share it abundantly with us. That any god would be willing to hold such a gift back because they're mean. One of the tropes in Christian writing is that when their god is announcing his presence, only then does everything become beautiful and flowers are everywhere, birds are abundant, and there are butterflies and bunnies and everything everywhere. He couldn't imagine not blessing people willingly, without caring about their religion or anything else. He couldn't imagine such a horrified, petty god. And, I come home and I see bunnies in my yard and I see fat groundhogs and I have an abundance of roses and honeysuckle and all this other good stuff, and I have trees that volunteered and are growing around the side of my house, so my house is much cooler this summer, and I'm very thankful for it. Our gods bless us without worry about whether or not we're perfect people. If we need to grow, they'll teach us the lessons, especially Loki. He's fond of teaching lessons. I go, yeah! And they'll teach us to love ourselves, and we often call Loki the Great Liberator because he's the one that comes to people that were raised in certain religions, and he's not picking on those religions, but he's like, you're not suited to this. If you were suited to this, you would be naturally happy. You're not suited to it because you're sad and depressed. As soon as I hit page 101 in this, and I'm sorry I'm stuffed up, guys, I got really depressed. I got really sad because it brought back all those teachings of humans are basically bad and only God is good. And Loki's like, because that is saying that their God is also capable of making mistakes, which makes no sense, but welcome to Christian theology. And we were created, or we evolved, or whatever you want. They can both simultaneously be true. To explore, to ask questions, to wonder, to have science, to have exploration, to have all this other stuff. It was interesting. There was this thing, I was watching a science special, and basically our universe is kind of somehow on top of an old universe, is what they're saying they're finding out, and there's this kind of line around the old universe of, basically, it reminded me of the Ardor story of creation of, putting all the eyelashes outside of, Midgard to protect the people. That's exactly what they were describing, but they were using science to describe it. And I'm like, that's neat. So, maybe the gods gave us stories that we could accept to explain something that wouldn't have been conceivable to us, The gods sitting down and trying to explain millions of years in science to people that weren't ready yet wouldn't have done any good. So it's just some thoughts. Loki's happy that the book is over, and the heathen kitty, I swear that cat's a heathen, she was fine while I had breakfast, she was fine while I was doing everything else, she was fine while I was answering you, but the moment I started to read that book, that cat pitched a fit, fell in it, and would not calm down until I stopped reading the book. The moment I decided to give up on the book because it just was making me feel lousy, the cat was fine. And because I have conversations with this cat, I don't know if I told you this recording's like the 10th time I've tried. I told the cat, I says, because the cat seems curious because how she's programmed. And I said, well, it's a book. And I told her what the book was about. And I said, they say only Jesus is good. And the cat's like, mm-mm. And I'm like, you're definitely your father's daughter. That, if you're new to the channel, is the cat that Loki calls Princess. And I've noticed he activates those cats whenever he wants my attention. And that cat was going berserk. He does not like this book, but he wanted me to have this book as a reminder of there's Loki's way of teaching us and loving us and supporting us and reminding us of the good in us. Or there's the other way that's totally the opposite of anything Loki would do. So, it's just food for thought. And if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm sorry if I sound a little down. It's just these allergies. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.